Now, before I dive into today's video, I want to tie this one into my last video. And so that video, it resonated deeply because it showed men the cost of compromise and why protecting your peace is non-negotiable. And so today is going to be building directly onto that. And so if you haven't seen that video, I've linked it down in the video description below, so go check it out. And all right, men, let's dive in, shall we? So you hear this quite a bit. You know, women will say that they can't stand liars, right? They're tired of the cheaters. They say that men, they won't commit. They only want hookups. They're shallow, right? But here's the truth that nobody wants to admit to. And by nobody, I mean women. Women created those men. They created them. Now, they don't like to hear that, but it's reality. I understand that they tend to be allergic to uncomfortable truths, and that happens to be one of them. Men are mirrors. Men adapt to what works. And for decades now, women have been rewarding. What have they been rewarding? Well, dishonesty, arrogance, and they've been rewarding chaos. And so what do men do? They have learned to play the game that women set up. And so let's talk numbers for a second. So studies show that on dating apps that the top 10% of men, they get 80% of women's attention, 80%. And so, I mean, just think about that imbalance. I mean, it means that the majority of women out there are competing they're competing for the same tiny sliver of men. And ladies, most of them know that. Most men know that. Now, just think about it. When a man realizes that he's the prize, what incentive does he have to commit? I mean, women set that economy up, and then they complain about the outcome. So, ladies, I mean, a man can show his real self, his doubts, his insecurities, his flaws, and what happens? Well, he gets punished for it. He gets ignored by you. He gets rejected by you. But the man who hides his flaws, who hides those flaws, who postures, who exaggerates his status, he gets your attention. And so what do men learn through this process? Well, they learn to lie, okay? They learn to fake it. They learn to present the illusion of power. And that's not natural dishonesty, that's adaptation. The liars that women despise, they're shaped by women's instinct to punish honesty and reward appearances. And then, of course, there's the endless testing that women do. They're constantly testing, constantly. They're always pushing and prodding and challenging. They're always looking for cracks in the foundation, right? They're always checking to see if a man is strong enough to lead. And in the older times, men accepted that as part of the masculine burden. They did, but now, when life is already a constant fight, what with bills and careers and courts and a hostile culture, that constant testing, it doesn't feel like proof of strength. It feels like sabotage of peace. And how do men survive it? Well, they stop being authentic. They play games. They spin plates. They hold back commitment. They never show their full hand. And that is how players are made. Not by choice, by training. The players women hate are simply the men who learned to survive the gauntlet of testing. And if you look at behavior trends, if you look at what women do versus what they say, women say they want stability, but data doesn't show that. It shows the antithesis of that. The research has shown that female attraction patterns show a spike in preferences for those bad boy traits like dominance and unpredictability and risk-taking, especially in their younger years. And the dependable man, he gets overlooked. The volatile man, he gets sex and attention. And men see this. They see who wins and they adapt. They become more chaotic, more reckless, more selfish. Because that's what women respond to. And then women turn around and complain about instability. But they rewarded it, right? And just look at the attention economy. I mean, women, through their beauty and sexuality, they control the market of attention. And who do they give their time and their bodies to? Well, it's the man with looks, charm, and status. It's not the man with honesty. It's not the man with a long-term commitment. And over time, that conditions men to perform, to posture, to manipulate, because that's what works. And the narcissists that women complain about, well, they're just men who learned that performance wins the prize. And now just layer on social media. So Instagram, TikTok, OF, that's just hypergamy on steroids. Women now have access to men outside their natural league. The Pareto distribution has been globalized. A woman who in another era would have been approached by a handful of men in her town now has thousands of strangers liking, DMing, validating her daily. I talked about this in my previous video, how her grandma, like she gets as much attention in one day as her grandma got in a lifetime, if that. And what does that do? It warps perception. It makes average women feel above average. So it inflates egos and it erodes pair bonding. And what do men do to compete in that marketplace? Well, they exaggerate, they flex, they posture harder. Authentic men disappear because they can't compete with illusions. And the toxic men women despise are often manufactured by Instagram. And here's the double bind. Women say they want truth, but they punish men who reveal weakness, right? Women say they want commitment, but they reward men who avoid it. Women say they want stability, but they chase chaos. Men don't live in theory. Men live in reality. They adapt to the incentives. So women became the architects of the very dysfunction they now resent. So when women complain about liars, they need to admit they punish honesty. When they complain about players, they need to admit that they overlooked the stable man and gave their best years to the reckless ones. When they complain about narcissists, they need to admit that they reward performance over substance. And when they complain about chaos, they need to admit that they chose it over peace. And here's the bottom line. Modern men are not a deviation from women's choices. They are a reflection of them. The men women hate are the men they trained into existence. And here's the irony. The good men, the stable men, the honest men, the disciplined builders in our society, they didn't disappear, they walked away. They left the game. They refused to keep performing for women who wouldn't value them. That's why women are constantly looking around today and asking, well, where are all the good men? The answer is you had them and you overlooked them and you rewarded their opposites. And now you're surrounded by the very kind of man you claim to despise. You made your bed and now you got to sleep in it. Men didn't create this. Women did.